Hi, everybody. I don't know if y'all feel it, but it's almost like there's an eclipse happening right now. Like a transformation. Even if it's not, like I've seen hoax claims about the Artemis 2, that, even if it is, that only adds to it. The idea that we've seen with human eyes something new, something for the first time. We are a shared consciousness, and this consciousness, recognizing it in any area of our being, which is one being, this is cosmic consciousness that I've talked about, is recognizing it for all of us. And then having pictures put out, whether or not these pictures are, real, which I believe they are, right? That's enough. Not only do I believe they are, but I'm not the only one. And so this new thing has been added, and it is something so personal, something so known to us. Our, in many ways, like our mother, an aspect of the mothering nature in all of nature, in our very being, even in our body. It's, a new story that fills in a link in our minds. And I think that if you are aware enough, able to see a little bit past our own stories, right? Because when we can work through our personal stories to a point, we come to this conception that, like, we aren't this I being, this I that looks, this I that sees. And the self kind of dissolves more and more till you're about ready to be like, well, yeah, what's the point of any of it? And that's fine too in its way. And so you surrender. And when you surrender, you give into the fact that, like, well, this is it. This is the creation. It is the divine body of God. It's you depending on the type of person you are, right? You do things with your consciousness just that are of your nature. And it all comes back around. Either way, we tell ourselves stories, and like I've talked about before, you can break out of those stories. But when you break out of those stories, you accept essentially the stories of the rest of the world. And you realize those stories of the rest of the world go long and deep and are historical and social and spiritual, and genetic and magic. And you become an agent within all those stories at once. And we have this new story that's related to science, which is like a prevailing thing in people's minds, but just at a time when a lot of people are really finding or reaching out for a sense of spirituality, for a sense of meaning in the chaos of the world. If you had like eyes to see and ears to hear, kind of, especially in the last couple days when they went behind the moon, or even conceivably did at least, you would have noticed what's happening, what's been happening. And it's kind of, it's weird and beautiful. The metaphor I've likened it to is the need to cut off your own head, because at a certain point, the number of conceptions you have rotating around us, rotating around the dark side of the moon as a part of consciousness, and what the moon means on a very magical scale like that. This was a built up from the spirit of the people to see something new, to tell a new story that wasn't the end of the world, to tell a story that gave life to all those things, or at least if we're going to tell that story, we're going to need to investigate it. We're going to need to look back at our life and become a master of figuring out what our story's been. Not just the story of our lives, but the story of humanity as a whole. And when we look at our life, you can see that story of our life is the story of all of humanity and is the story of all of life. And if you can unravel one, you can unravel the other, and nature and you become one. There is so much to see and know and learn. There's secret histories and mysteries and we all have to figure them out together instead of telling them in a way that's harming each other. That's tearing the stories apart. The stories will never finish. If we want a way out, then we need to look behind us and see where we come from and who we've been, because that's the story overall. It's a truly magical experience, and it turns the dark aspects of life, like it gives you a greater knowing, a greater understanding of what it's like to be. And also, seeing the dark side of the moon. It's pretty cool. It's like, it is like a peek into the subconscious mind. I know for sure that's what I've been experiencing. I think I've talked about in some videos, like an equalization of experiences, but then that equalization is like balanced with your what's going on in the world around you, and being able to recognize those things inside you, and like I said, like see more and hear more, and reach to a place that I think maybe a few years ago might have made me like have like a mental break in a way where I wasn't able to apply myself creatively, artistically, because creative expression is kind of the point. If we're going to tell the story or retell our story so that we can like free ourselves from this cycle, then we have to retell our story in such a way that heals all parts of it and makes the wounds okay, makes it eventually so that we could all come together, right? We've been telling stories that take us apart, and you see that even represented in the understandings that are found by science as a whole, saying that the universes are right coming apart. But we need to start retelling our stories in a way that brings us together from a new light, a new perspective, so that not only can we heal the nature of the world, but we can get a way out of this it being so horrible. But you also find the beauty in it. Like I said, there's part of it where you find the beauty, but man, it's also an experience that could be enjoyed so much more if it was done differently. But I mean, we've brought ourselves here. You know, you get like clues sometimes when you drop into the subconscious. You get like clues from those lower brain functions, and to follow them too hard is rough. But if you watch something like a David Lynch movie, you could see, like you grab onto a clue and you follow it just a little bit, and then you do your conscious thing. But it's been so much more. I know it's real because when I'm out in nature, I feel it. I hear my ancestors so truly, and they speak through all people around me because I am part of their story, and I need to help them tell it. And I think we need to accept that. If you're looking ahead right now and you're trying to see what the world is going to look like, I don't think you're going to have a very good or clear vision. Probably a confused and scared one, an unhappy one. But if you look inside, you see that you came from somewhere. And you need to believe in who you are and where you came from and reconcile that inside of you. There's like no escaping it. And so the idea of like cutting off your head, right? You gotta, you aren't those stories, but you have to live them. One of the other common themes that is so similar that just keeps popping up for me is that karma yoga, the trying to do all your actions without result. Like here I am, talking to, I don't know, 10 people maybe. I don't know, my videos don't get very much, and it's not even the point of how far any of this spreads. It's about it. Like if this is like, it's a weird thing to do because it's putting myself out there, but it's like my life and your life are dreams from subjective points of consciousness. And in my life story, because of whatever reasons, I believe so much that just speaking these words into existence and cementing them in a way where even I could just watch it and I could cement it into my own consciousness makes it more real, so that when I am in those moments of being the in between on the dark side of the moon with my head cut off, and like egoless and living in a moment that feels like forever, but there's a place when it would only feel like forever when it felt bad. But now I'm able, and I'm sure I'm not the only one who could tap into a place where it feels like forever and it feels good. And I feel like I can do what I want, and that like the stories that I have told myself have become okay. And I find myself there, and like, yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's okay. It's finally okay, and I can live that life, and I don't have to worry about the pressure of like the bugs of society, right? Telling me that I need to do this or be that or whatever. Because yeah, again, if I'm looking towards the future, you're facing it's a bad thing to look at. But if I look to the past, I at least can see that as a way to make the future better. Again, meet in the middle. The stories we've told have grown big. And I feel like I've been given enough clues to understand a little better what's going on, what some of the bigger stories are that people have been telling themselves. I think all of us have seen that in very material ways, but there is a spiritual dimension to this whole play of life. And it's best understood in metaphor and poetry and song and dance and expression. And when you can find your clues and your heart in those things and in the story of your peoples and of the peoples of the world, and the truths and the falsehoods in those stories, when you can learn to hear truth and falsehood, when you can learn to listen to your body in such a complex and profound way where every cell is like a grain of sand, when you can start to see your eyes and hear your ears, And you only know it's true not because, again, you don't get any applause or any accolades. Far from it. You get it because you go out and you can feel and see life. We're no longer in a world where society is going to be able to have that same sort of power on this sort of actual realization. It has kept it down for such a long time, but the story has changed. The fact that one person can say this means that everyone can say this. And that nature can say it with us. What the astronauts picked up, whether or not they did, in the conception of the minds of all of us since we cut off our heads as a piece of our consciousness went somewhere new. What they caught was a seed. And that seed is coming back to Earth. And we don't recognize it. Or maybe some of us do. What it's brought is inevitable. And it's being planted in the minds of all of us. And it's going to grow into a beautiful and horrific tree. And it's going to be great. It's going to be a lot of fun. Honestly, like I said, like follow those clues, don't follow them too hard. It's so absolutely wonderful, this joyous play. You know, I was talking recently, right, I had mentioned about the Magha Nakshatra that Ketu had entered, being the representation of like the king's losing his head. And that's probably going to happen too. You know, the politicians of the world are, you know, there's going to be lots of power changes. But you also have to be willing to lose your own head in a way, you know, right? Like cut off that own personal ego, because that seed is like a new cosmic perspective. It's been coming. It's probably the reason why I'm even like started talking about these videos, started having the life experiences that I have, and I'm sure a lot of people have. Because we naturally were preparing and calling and creating this out of our own body minds. Our mind bodies. Ourselves. But I was talking about the Magha Nakshatra, and it's ruled by the goddess Chinnamasta also. And she cuts off her own head to feed her attendants, and her head, which she holds. And it's not nourishing and life-giving. So I think this is kind of like, if you're really focused on the world being like so distinctly material still, and like unwilling to recognize the invisible parts of yourself, I mean that's your world, and that's great. And I'm sure, you know, that conception will lead to probably like the end of the world. But like, you really just get past the end of the world by just continuing to walk. In those moments when you can recognize it, you just keep walking. And I think because these stories have gotten so big that we're telling ourselves, a lot of people are gonna have to face those choices in a way that they'll be unable to make a choice. They'll become paralyzed. Yeah, I think it's a really great thing. You know, there's a moment, and it's that level of dying to yourself has so many layers, right? But to live the story of your people, of your family, and again, there's like family in so many different ways. like, you know, like soul family, the family that's like you, the family of the lives that you dreamed up together. And then there's like blood family, and there's heart connection. Man, there's so many ways of interacting with this world that are so beneficial and bring such a sense of connection. And to follow it all the way back, like I said, if you look at your life, you can see the entire history of creation. And this seed is coming back. You know, our heads are coming back. Now it's kind of about learning how to put it back on, or sometimes maybe even how to find it. So, sending love. Bye.